And welcome to the Barry Foster Show on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions for the program, people you'd like us to interview, topics you'd like us to broach, you can just go ahead and put them right there in the comments below. We'll get back to you, and we've had a couple of people already suggesting people, and we're going to reach out to them and see if we can get them on the air and some subjects maybe we should be talking about. Remember, right here at the YouTube page, we will have daily new programs Monday through Friday, and maybe even some bonus programs on the weekend. So please subscribe, like and subscribe our YouTube page. That'll help a lot. And join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. In the studios this morning, the handsome exciting John Larsen. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are we doing today?
Excellent, sir. And yourself?
Not bad for a Monday. Not bad for a Monday, right.
Well,
and so I had a major chore in front of me yesterday. I iron my clothes, okay? I can't help it. I iron my clothes.
I noticed your T-shirt and jeans look pristine today.
So there was a pile about close to 2 foot plus high. So I said, yesterday's the day. So I sat down with my ironing board for 3 hours, and I got it all done and hung up. So hallelujah.
There you go. You look
that was
very...
And I thought, somebody said, John, that's a better chore to be inside to do that yesterday than it would be outside.
Oh my gosh.
So it was mighty warm yesterday, I think. Mine was 95.4.
I've heard that it's gotten as high as 105.
Oh my God. Well, I see the Tampa yesterday had 100 degrees?
Yeah, that was a record.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's warm. It's supposed to be 95 plus today.
And the thing is that it is actually warmer up north than it is in Florida.
My daughter's had a heat wave and it's supposed to be all this week in Pennsylvania. So yeah, they're having some heat also. So that's all right.
Well, you know, some people call it global warming. We call it summer.
Right.
You know, that's the kind of thing that happens when it gets. And the Earth does a little bit of wobbling. As you remember, our friend John Casey from Dark Winter talked a little bit about how the Earth wobbles and it goes through cycles. There are hurricane cycles. There's even cycles for earthquakes and natural disturbances like that. So you go through about a 20-year cycle on that.
Yep, and so on. So it's I'm glad we got some rain previous to this, and hopefully we'll get more. But right now we're in the midst of summertime, and that's what it's called. It was always called summertime when I was a kid.
Stay hydrated.
That's right.
Stay hydrated.
And so on. So, but a little bit of a heat, that's for sure.
While you were out ironing your clothes, flights have started out of Alligator Alcatraz, and we tried to find out how many. The governor said a number of them. He didn't tell us what number that would be, but.
And I did want to clarify something. Last week I said I think the runway length down there was like 1,000 to 1,500. No, it's like 15,000 feet long.
Yeah.
So it's a much larger runway, and they can get some pretty big planes in there if they have to.
Hey, get them in and get them out.
Yes.
And that's the thing about Alligator Alcatraz, and it's run by the Florida Department of Emergency Management. And I have a couple of calls into them, again, trying to get a spokesperson to give us the inside of what's happening at Alligator Alcatraz. I know it was the capacity currently is 3,000. They're looking at making it 5,000. That they have had. It's not a penitentiary, although it bears the name Alcatraz, which was a high security federal prison. This is a processing facility. This immigration processing facility, it's different.
Right. I mean, the goal there is not to hold people forever and ever. The goal is you hold them long enough to get all of their statute things taken care of, put them on a plane and send them back to wherever they come from. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And that was right. The governor had the first one. But I will tell you, some of the stories you read about what supposedly the people that are being held there are saying, mosquitoes as big as a horse and no air conditioning and the food, I mean, there's so many things that they say is going wrong. And then right behind it, there'll be somebody from FEMA and say, look, none of that is true. We've had many people come through, dignitaries, so to speak, give them a visual show of what it is. Yes, they're held in cages, if you want to call it that. because they are bad people and prone to escape or do whatever. A lot of them, most of them have some kind of criminal background.
If you've seen pictures, these are steel beams honeycombed with chain link fence. And it's not the big bars.
No.
Because the deterrent is that getting off the property, you have, and that's why they call it Alligator Alcatraz, there's a bunch of rattlesnakes and
Alligators.
boa constrictors and pretty good sized mosquitoes, you know, and so there's the deterrent is you have to go through 75 miles of that, you know, and to be honest with you, right from probably just a few miles from where we're sitting right now is the Avon Park Correctional Institute, and out there's a lot of miles and miles, but nothing but miles and miles of very similar. It's not a swamp, but it's Florida scrub, and there's a lot of stuff out there that will bite you. You know, so one of the challenges you have is if you get out, getting to civilization is going to take a while.
Well, like I said, this is only a temporary situation for holding these folks long enough to get their legal issues behind. Also, make sure that you know where they're going to and so on. And when they get enough of them, I assume, to fill up a plane, put them on a plane and send them back to where they came from. The other thing is, watching something this morning, Victor Davis Hanson, he was talking about some of this stuff, and we've already had approximately 1 million people self-deport from the United States. And what he said, and I totally agree with this is part of the whole thing, the cost of having those people in the country, all right, is phenomenal when you take a look at the public services, those that have created some kind of a criminal activity that have had to be housed now in some jail cell or whatever, okay? So there's a lot of costs that have been going on ever since Joe Biden started bringing them in four and a half years ago. And now these costs are beginning to subside when you take these people out of the picture. So that's not only the civil justice part of the whole thing, it's also the actual cost of having those people in the country.
There's a lot of self-deportation because the choice is pretty clear. You can take a free plane ride and $1,000 and leave of your own accord, or now they've gone from heinous crimes, the rape, the robbery, the murder, that kind of thing, to smaller crimes. And arguably everyone who's entered the United States illegally has committed a crime.
Right.
So, and I understand that Governor DeSantis is stepping up to a more aggressive schedule of processing and deportation to get more and more people out, because as they leave, there's more beds open in the Alligator Alcatraz to move them out and move them to their next step in life.
Right, and so on. So I think and again, not to be once, but when you take a look at the things that this administration has accomplished in just about 6 months, it's absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And and they were saying this morning that even some of the Democrats, even though they won't admit it publicly, are amazed at the amount of things that Trump has gotten done.
We saw how quickly things overturned when Joe Biden came into the presidency.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Donald Trump took note of that, and he's a smart guy. And I want to talk about one thing. You talk about the conditions at Alligator Alcatraz. It put me very much in mind of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's out in Maricopa County, Arizona, put the inmates in tents. He said if it's good enough for our GIs, it's good enough for them. They were stealing the underwear, so he dyed the underwear pink. He was feeding them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And there was a lawsuit. You mentioned the lawsuits. One of the ones was that the ham sandwiches weren't toasted. And he said something about this Alligator Alcatraz that really surprised me is this: everybody gets the same. The employees get the same food as the inmates, and that's not like in schools. The teachers don't get the same lunch as the kids. Okay, and in this, it was very interesting to me that everybody got the same thing. That whatever they made up in the mess hall, that's what they got served. But something else that I found out was very interesting. Did you know our good friend Grady Judd, Polk County Sheriff, is also the chairman of the Florida Immigration Enforcement Council? and talking about what's going to be happening in the state of Florida on taking care of illegals that are here in the Sunshine State. He is, in many cases, rather the twin of Joe Arpaio, someone who has an interesting thought process on how to take care of lawbreakers. And for him to be the chairman of the Florida Immigration Enforcement Council, I'm going to try to get him on the phone. I called you this morning. We've got the Mixed Minus hooked up. We're going to see if we can get Grady Judd on the phone for as long as he'll talk to us about this Florida Immigration Enforcement Council, because I think Florida, again, will be leading the way in seeing people who are not here legally being sent out of the country.
I think, if memory serves me correct, there was something that either DeSantis did or said or whatever, but I thought maybe the courts had stepped in and slapped his wrist and said something to the effect that, you're not in charge of immigration policy. That's not your bailiwick. So I don't know whether that was correct or not, and how far it was going to go. I don't know.
We've seen that happen before under a different administration, where they said immigration is a federal issue. The states have no truck with that. I think this administration has a different view of that, and they say, hey, look, you want to help us? We'll take all the help we can get. And so if the states, and there are red states who are going to help and blue states who will not help, and so I think that they're going to take the low-hanging fruit first and go after that, and then and move ahead. Speaking of which, did you notice that that Donald Trump took a trip to Scotland to go play golf?
Oh, yeah, I saw him over there, not only playing golf, but he met with Starmer from Germany, and it looks like they put together a pretty good package with the EU and Germany as far as a 15% tariff, I think, on both sides. So it certainly looked like that was going to be a big one. And then Europe, they're trying to finalize the numbers with England because England is separate from the EU. They operate on their own, but they've got an agreement with the EU or with England, but they have to finalize the numbers. So, but that is, and for the first time in the month of May, I think he said this morning, that we had a surplus. We brought in more money than we spent. That's the first time that's happened in like 17 years, did he say?
And you know why that is?
Tariff money.
That's exactly
Tariff
right.
money, right, absolutely. So, I mean, this is, and again, it's not like we're trying to say, you're going to have to pay 20 and we're going to pay just 50. No, reciprocity, I want it to be equal. You want 0 or do you want 15% or
That's what he's trying to get. He's
That's
trying
right.
to get to 0.
That's right.
But I've heard for years, that guys go out and play golf, and there's a lot of business done on the golf course. This wasn't actually done on the golf course. It was done, aside from the golf course. But Trump did go with meet with the European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and he said, I think what we're going to do is just slap a 30% tariff on you. We'll call it even. Just whoa, wait. Let's talk about this. It's 15% on most European goods. They had been paying roughly 1%. And some of the tariffs are mutually eliminated. In addition, the European Union has agreed to purchase $750 billion in natural gas, and they're going to invest another $600 billion in the United States, although they didn't say where or how that was going to be.
I heard this morning that they are agreed to buy Boeing aircraft and so on. So it looks like Boeing is going to be the beneficiary of one of the big contracts, if you will, with the EU and so on. So I think it's, we signed an agreement with Australia that said we could finally send and sell beef to them, which we've been unable to do because of the restrictions they put on us. Yet we buy Australian beef in this country. So all of these things everybody's, Trump, he's such a meanie. No, what he's trying to do is get to a balanced situation between these countries and ourselves so that we're not getting financially hosed every time we buy something from these other countries. And I think that is long overdue.
The pieces that I read all said the same thing at the end, and the talks continue. I think Trump likes to negotiate.
Oh, of course he does.
He likes to get in there, and he likes to negotiate, and make deals. That's where he lives. So them continuing all of their deals and all these other things he's brokering is part and parcel of what he likes to do. And he went over with the excuse that he was going to play one of his new golf courses and see how it was. Mm-hmm. And by the way, did you notice he blamed his high scores on the golf course?
No, I didn't see
the course was too good for me. You know, he was blaming the golf course. Typical golf course.
Yeah, there you go.
But another deal that he's made, and I didn't even hear anything about this, but he's engineered a ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand.
Right.
And they were having, I'm not sure what their disagreement was over.
They're battling over, I think, the border or whatever, and it got a little heated because I think there was a number of casualties last week in the attacks, and so on. So, you know, like Trump is saying, look, why do you need, whatever country's involved, doesn't matter. Why are you killing each other? What's the sense of killing each other? There's got to be an answer to whatever your problem is, and it doesn't involve killing people. So I think he genuinely is concerned about innocent people or people that are losing their lives for what appears to be no really good reason.
And I think that one of the things he used, and I think I get a degree of humor out of this, he says, well, we're not going to cut a trade deal with either of you guys until you get a ceasefire. And so you're not going to be able to send your stuff to us, and we're going to tax the living, we're going to tear off the living daylights out of you. And they said, well, we can stop fighting until we get this done.
Right.
So,
and I think that, speaking of that, I think some of his frustration with Putin is the fact that Putin continues to want to kill civilians. And Trump says, this is absolutely insane. Why do you need to keep killing people? And so on. So I think that, and he hasn't been able to get Putin to sit down and agree to anything. And I think that's a big deal because there's so many millions of people that have either been killed or wounded or missing between Russia and Ukraine.
I'm not sure. I'm not the international guy. I'm not sure what Putin's deal is, but it may have to do with something that's been going on that we've been watching with great interest, which is this whole Russia collusion hoax that was put into play. They're pointing many people pointing their fingers at Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Clapper, Comey, Susan Rice. I mean, the list goes on as you go down through the food chain there. And there's Amtrak on time. Thank you very much. But I think maybe part of his problem may have to do with this Russian collusion hoax. And there may be more to this than we know. And he may be building his stock so that when it comes up, he can. Well, I'll agree to stop the ceasefire, stop the Ukraine thing, if this doesn't come out or if this is suppressed.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because that has lagged on now for 2 years, and so on. It's just absolutely insane. And I think Russia thought in the beginning, we can whip through Ukraine in a couple of weeks and it'll be all over with. I think he underestimated the fighting spirit of the Ukrainian men and whatnot. So the other thing, there seems to be a big fixation on the fact that he did not want Ukraine to be part of the UN or part of NATO,
right,
and so on. And I don't understand what his big fear is with that, but that appears to be one of his hang-ups. And of course, Trump and the rest of them have already said, okay, good. We're not going to allow them to become part of the United Nations.
It's very much the same as when I was a very young boy, when the United States, with their U-2 flights, found out they were putting missiles in Cuba, mm-hmm. and Cuba was going to be part of the Soviet bloc, and they didn't want those missiles 90 miles offshore. I can see Putin saying, hey, look, we don't want these guys in our back door with missiles that can be launched into Moscow. We don't want that to happen. Excuse me. We don't want that to occur. And so I think that as much as anything, he wants to keep that part of the world stabilized and not have to be looking over his shoulder with that going. I think that may be part and parcel of why he wants. And we used to have a great caller who had the Donbass region and how it was part of the Soviet Union, and it got taken out with the Ukraine. He knows chapter and verse all of that history, but I think that the Russians, in some sense, feel like that belongs to them anyway. I'm not old enough to remember this, but I do remember reading about it and studying it, because as I grew up on a steady diet of two things: cowboy movies and World War II movies, okay? Mm-hmm. And World War II television shows like The Big Picture, things like that. And Hitler considered the Sudetenlands, which was part of Poland, to be part of Germany, and he used that as an argument to go and invade Poland and take back what he argued was originally part of Germany. I think that Putin has that same idea about parts of the Ukraine, which he arguably thinks belong to him. And again, I think that it just seems, when you watch this, you look at it and you say, there's something else going on here. I don't know what it is. When I was a kid, my mom would be really mad about something, and you'd listen to her, and she wasn't mad about this. And you'd poke around until you found out it was something over here. It was, she got cheated at the bridge game or something. That's what she's mad about, but it's misdirected anger. And I think what Putin's got going on here is some level of, I'm going to fight about this over here, but that's not what I'm really doing.
Well, he's already taken considerably more territory than what Obama and them gave to them.
Yes.
They gave part of Ukraine to Russia previous to this, okay? But the other thing on the financial part of it, which is good, the latest thing that Trump did with armaments to Ukraine, he told the United Nations and that, or whatever, NATO, yeah, we'll give ammunition and other missiles and that to Ukraine. You have to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it anymore. We paid billions and billions of dollars for the armaments that we gave them. And by the way, that really shortened our shelf of armaments and that we had available for our own safety. So I think it was a big deal that he said, okay, look, we'll give more of it to them, but you, NATO, are going to pay for it. And they agreed to it. So, that's the thing.
Well, understand that Vladimir Putin is a former KGB agent. And one of the high, I don't know if he was in charge of the KGB. He might have been in charge, but he was certainly in the highest echelon of the KGB. That being said, he knows how to structure things with misinformation, disinformation, and I think some of it, and I could be totally wrong, I think some of it goes back to this Hillary Russian collusion hoax, which, again, as we get more and more information out, has been is being shown to lead directly back to Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think he was, he did, from what we read and even what Victor Davis Hanson was talking about this morning, when they first brought the intelligence information to him and they found out that it wasn't good, it wasn't going to work, he said, I don't want that story. You go back and bring me one that says it was right, it was correct, all right, and so on. So I think he was, Barack Obama was definitely the kingpin behind that whole episode. And they did this after Trump was elected, but before he took office. Between election in November and him taking office on January 20th, this is when they concocted this whole show.
Well, the story that we're getting out of the current White House is that this was to sabotage the Trump presidency, to keep him, I think, from undoing some of the things that had been done during the 8 years under Barack Hussein Obama. And they were trying to hobble him in every way, shape, and form. There's a story, I'm not sure of the validity, but I think they already believed that Hillary was going to win. And so when she won, then they were going to destroy Donald Trump. And we've heard, I heard Limbaugh talk about this, and he says, look, Trump was not part of the group. He's not he's not part of the club. And so they not only wanted to get rid of him, they wanted to send a message that no one would ever try this again that wasn't part of the group that tried to run the country. And so I think they were astonished when he won, and they then tried to hobble his presidency, and were pretty successful, mostly through the media, because we heard the stuff that we're hearing now. You and I had heard for many years under Limbaugh, who outlined the Steele dossier, how it was put together online, the fake video of the prostitutes and the bed, all of that was totally fabricated, and the media continued this. And I think maybe one of the reasons the media is not talking about this now is the fact that they were complicit. And I had, and I've lost it. I had a montage that someone had put together of all the different media types talking about Russian collusion. All this stuff that was up about Russian collusion, and I was going to play it, but I don't have it. Maybe it'll pop up here while we're talking. But I think one of the reasons is it shows that they're complicit in this, and it's one of the reasons that the mainstream media has really kind of dropped off, and more people are listening to podcasts like this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's the so-called top media, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, they're really dying on the vine financially. All of them. So they've got a serious income problem, because number one, most of the people like Stephen Colbert, they pay him, was it $15 million a year, and the show is losing $40 million a year. Well, how long can you? I don't care how big you are. How long can you absorb that kind of financial, disaster? You can't.
No.
So this is one of their problems. But the other thing, Putin in Russia, and I don't understand all of the workings of this, but I guess the oligarchs over there, which are the rich people in Russia,
yes,
really have some power when it pertains to Putin. Now, yes, Putin can say, look, see that guy? Wipe him out. Make sure he jumps off the 15th story, okay, into his untimely death. But they hold some sway in Russia because they're the people with the money. And the problem he's having back there, Russia's lost over 1 million men to either. That's why he's brought in North Koreans or other people to help fight the war, because he ran short of people. So I mean, he's got a crisis in his own country, trying to salvage his reputation, because he's number one. They thought they were going to wipe the Ukrainians out in a matter of weeks or a month, and here we are 2 years down the road. So it's cost him dearly in manpower, some civilians, and also huge amounts of money. And the only money they've got is their natural gas and or oil that they sell to the rest of the world, mainly the EU, which now part of the EU has said, okay, Trump also talked to the lady over there about, all right, we both need to get into these mini nuclear power plants. Mm-hmm. Instead of relying strictly on oil or gas, we have to start turning ourselves inward back to nuclear, because they can build these smaller nuclear plants now that will service a specific community. You build another one over here that takes care of a specific community, and you're not beholden to oil or gas, but you have the energy you need.
Well, the push for the quote-unquote clean energy, it's not reliable. The sun energy only produces so much, and if you have a natural disaster like right here in Highlands County, we had a twister that went right through the middle of a solar farm, tore it up. It's completely, unusable until they get it fixed. Mm-hmm. Wind, you're totally relying on wind, and if it kills a couple of birds, there are blue states that won't have that anymore. Hydroelectric, which was the most reliable, they're trying to do away with that because they're trying to knock down dams now, saying that the rivers should be allowed to go normally. I think one of the biggest ones is the Snake River. The Evel Knievel tried to jump over the snake, but they're trying to get rid of the dams there. So this energy that they have been pushing for the last, well, if you count Obama, the last 12 years, is very unreliable. Where when you have nuclear energy, it's going to be putting out energy, and these small pocket plants, they continue to get more and more efficient. So a smaller plant can put out the amount of energy that you need, and as we see the desire for energy continues to grow, especially with electric-powered vehicles. So you're going to have something that is reliable and can crank out the levels of energy that you need, and it's not going to come from solar or wind or hydro.
No, and you
Just
can
not.
see out in California, and I watch a lot of videos from California just to see, because they're the ultimate number one when it comes to craziness government-wise out there in California. I mean, they now are talking, because they had 4 refineries out there. Newsom and the legislature out in California have now forced 2 of those to shut down, which they are in the process of doing, which means their oil and gas availability is going to become very constrained. They're now talking of gas prices between $8 and $10 a gallon in California. Plus, they also are doing that to force people into an EV vehicle.
Yes.
So it's a disaster, and it's not working well in California.
By the way, did you see where the Los Angeles Firefighters Union is now suing Gavin Newsom because they not only did not allow them to turn on the spigots and use the water resources that they had for some smelt fish, but they also didn't allow them to take water out of the ocean to fight the Los Angeles fires.
Crazy.
You know, and it's a ridiculous thing, but it's something that we need, and this is, I think, is our call to action, if you will. We need to be talking with our children and grandchildren about this, because we are now in the process of recouping the republic. We're in the process of putting the republic back on its feet again and showing people how it should work. Right around the corner, we have the midterms. Mm-hmm. And if the America First candidates don't retain the House and the Senate, then Donald Trump, his progress will pretty much be brought to nothing. So that's happening now, but we need to imbue our children with something that apparently they hadn't gotten in regular school education, is how the republic works and why it is so much more beneficial than a democracy. You know, it's something that we need to do now, and I look with great trepidation who's going to take over the Oval Office after Donald Trump is gone, and how to keep that going. I've also looked with great trepidation as who's going to take over the governor's mansion when DeSantis steps down. Mm-hmm. You know, and I've seen some candidates. I've heard things. It's going to require our looking deeply into this kind of thing, and this is why I suggest that we look to not only this and if you hear things on this podcast that are wrong, please contact us, thebarryfostershow@gmail.com, or put them in the comments below, and we will correct any of those issues, because our idea is to make sure you get the right information. But let us talk to you about Truth Plus. Let us talk to you about Right Side Broadcasting. Mm-hmm. Let us talk to you about Patriot Radio. There's Newsmax, One America News, mm-hmm. where you can get the information that you need and have some reasonable expectation that's right, and begin to let your children and grandchildren begin to do their own research.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's number one. I think everybody needs to be informed. I think the only candidate that I've heard that's announced for the governorship is Brian Donalds. Mm-hmm. He's been out for a couple months now saying that, I am a candidate for the governorship of Florida after Ron DeSantis' term is done at the end of next year, and so on. I really believe that there's going to be a huge push by the Democrats, because you and I talked about this before, but there are 2 states that the Democrats have their eyes on. That is Florida and Texas.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they're pushing to redistrict some of the areas down in Texas to try and protect some of the seats that they either have or think that they can generate.
And I just saw a video of one of the New York City congresswomen who was complaining about deportation of illegals, because she needed people in her district for redistricting purposes. And somebody said they said the quiet part out loud, which is true. There has been a move to count illegals because they are people in the country, and say, well, you have so many people, whether they're legal or not, they're in this district. And this dates back to the middle 19th century, right before the Civil War, when people said, well, we have so many slaves, you need to count them. And they said, well, no, they're not citizens. Well, you need to count them anyway, and that's where the 3/5 of a person idea came from. It was 3/5 of a person for the purpose of the Senate, or for the purpose of the census. That's what that was for. And now we're back to these same arguments all over again.
Well, you go back to some of the things that were done and then changed in this country. Number one, if you go back in time, and I can't tell you the exact timing that it happened, but prior to that, senators were elected, but they were then available to be recalled. If the people were unhappy with their performance and thought they weren't doing what they were supposed to, they could recall their senator and have another election, if you will, and put a new person in there.
The senators were elected by Congress people from the House of Representatives. They weren't elected by popular vote in the state. They were elected by the representatives of each individual state, and they changed that to be popular vote. Whether that's for the better or for worse, I can't.
Well, some
right
of them
now.
that I see that are sitting in those seats, they definitely need to be recalled, or should have been recalled a long time ago.
And they need term limits.
Oh my God!
in there.
Yes.
Because there are some people. The founders never had the notion that this would become a permanent job.
No.
You did this out of public service.
And that's what the original founders did. They were mostly farmers. Some were doctors. Some were lawyers. Those types of people. They went there and they served their period of time, whatever that was, 2 years, 4 years, and then they went back home.
Yes.
And did what they were farmers or doctors, whatever. Today they get there and the perks are so good. The money that they are able to take in is so good, they don't want to leave.
No.
They don't want. That's why you got people like Biden was in the government for 50 years. Mitch McConnell has been in there for God knows. Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, they've been there forever and ever.
Well, we've heard President Trump saying that Congress should not have these great insurance deals and these other things, that they should go back and have to live on Medicare and Medicaid the way the rest of the Americans do, simply because they would have more, let's use the word sympathy, empathy.
Right.
Empathy
would be probably it.
Yeah, because they're going to be part of that, so everybody gets to be part of that. But I'll give this to the city of Sebring, okay? The last that I knew, and this may have changed since then, but you know what the city of Sebring city council members get paid?
No.
$1 a year.
$1 a year.
$1 a year.
Okay.
Now, they do get per diem if they're going to go to a conference, and so they give them some money for food and for room and board, and they give them some money for that. Okay, you get some remuneration for that. But to do the job, they don't get paid what a Highlands County commissioner gets paid, or a Highlands County school board member gets paid. Okay, they do it out of the idea of public service, and at least monetarily. And I think that there would be a lot fewer people who would run for Congress if they were doing it for $1 a year.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, and the thing of it is, if you take a look at the history of the people recently that have gone into Congress, most of them were not rich people, especially in the House. Most of them were not rich people. And yet they're there for, pick a number, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, 40 years. They come out of there multi-millionaires.
We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But we're just slap out of time for today. You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show with John Larsen, recorded at the Ridge Floor Studios located in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any suggestions, thoughts, ideas, people who'd like us to interview, or we've got the Mix Minus set up. We're going to do our first phone interview very soon. You can just put it in the comments below. You can always reach us at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Check out our YouTube page at The Barry Foster Show Daily, as we will be putting up new programming on a regular basis. And subscribe to our YouTube page. Join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful as we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way. This is Barry Foster and John Larsen, and we'll see you next time.